going to introduce to you our children's pastor, Miss Brandice Wilson. She's got an awesome message for us today of hope and inspiration, and you are just going to fall on the floor. All right, you ready? Give it up for Brandice.
I'm excited to share with you, and after encountering worship the way that we just did, well, do any of you ever feel like, well, we could just go home now? That was pretty awesome. So, Todd is an amazing teacher, preacher, and I have learned so much from him. And so, while he is fantastic at teaching and preaching, I don't necessarily know that I know how to do that. You see, I'm not a professional or anything, so I'm leaving the teaching and the preaching to him, and I am going to share with you. I'm going to share, just as your friend, some stories, some encouragement, hopefully, and stories of hope that I've encountered recently, and the word of the day is share. So hopefully that's what we're going to get from each other, is share hope with each other. So I feel like we should share testimony. And sometimes I wonder if we really know what testimony means. I think a lot of times we get wrapped up in this belief that a testimony is our whole life story, and that it goes from the beginning through all of these changes, through all of these ups and downs, to this amazing ending. And recently, God has been showing me that your testimony isn't necessarily this big, giant, long story. But what your testimony is what is God doing in your life today? How is God moving in your life? What is he doing? What are you allowing him to work out? And he wants you to take that and share it with others. It can be something really, really simple, almost to the point that you feel like that's just silly to share that, because how could that really help anybody? But that's the key. It's sharing those little bitty stories with each other so that we can have hope, so that we can know God's working here, so I know he's going to work over here. I am an ordinary girl completely. I have ordinary hopes. I have ordinary dreams. I am an ordinary girl who has made ordinary mistakes. I married an ordinary man. And we had ordinary hopes and dreams, just like everybody, right? You have those ideas of marriage, a long life together, family, kids, the house, maybe not a white picket fence, but a small yard so you don't have to mow a lot. You know, ordinary dreams. And yet, through that ordinariness, is that a word, you think? God does something even bigger. So in my ordinariness, making it a word, God took me from that ordinary girl with those ordinary hopes and dreams, and he has brought me into something that I very much did not plan on, that I very much did not expect to happen. See, one day I was this ordinary girl over here, and I encountered a love, a transforming, life-changing love from an unchanging God that changed everything. And while I didn't plan for the things that are happening, I didn't plan for the things that are going on in my life now, I never want to go back to that ordinary girl who didn't know the love of this unchanging God. That's right. See, we're friends, we're talking. I need to hear from you guys. So I experienced this life change from this God who loves me. And the awesome thing was, at the same time, well, a little while later, I had to be patient, but my husband, he got to experience that same thing. And so while he experienced it, we got to share this new ordinary. And it was different, and it's awesome, and I love it. And like I said, I don't ever want to go back. So when Todd puts me on the spot and says, hey, you're going to give a message on next Sunday, well, I have a choice. You see, I can choose to stay the ordinary girl who stays in her comfort level, which is definitely not being up here. Or I can choose to listen to the one who changed it all. I can listen to him, and I can know that he is going to give me everything that I need to do something so bold as to stand in front of you today. The awesome thing is that I'm not the only one he wants to call out. I'm not the only one he wants to be bold with. I'm not the only one that he's saying, come out of your comfort, step out and share. Share what I'm doing. Share how I love you. Share how I have changed everything about you so that others can feel the same thing that you have. It is scary, but it has been a great ride knowing that I am surrounded by this just amazing amount of love, friendship, support, encouragement, and mostly hope. You see, it leads me to the question of, what is faith? In the days after, the months after I lost Chris, that we all lost Chris, people would tell me, hang on to your faith. Hold on to that. It's a good thing you have faith. To be honest, at the time, I was like, what is that? And what does it mean? And how do you hang on to something that you don't even know what it is? It's a word that we use, but what does it mean to us? And what are we willing to do with that faith that we have? Faith can be a spiritual feeling. It can be a comfort. It can be a comfortable feeling. But in those days, in the beginning, I realized what faith was to me. And faith was, do I really believe what I thought that I believed? Do I really trust this unchanging God enough to say, this stinks and this hurts, but I'm not going back to where I was? And so that's what I did. I decided to hang on to that faith. My question for you to think about, that I've been thinking about over this last year, is how big is your faith? How deep is your faith? Do you think that your faith is worthy of a story in a Bible? Noah and the ark, he went out on faith to build a big boat, and people thought he was crazy. Elijah believed in his faith, and he said he didn't want any more rain to come. And then there are the awesome healing stories of supernatural healing, vision being restored to the blind, the dead being raised. Those people that were asking for God to come in and heal them, they were not afraid to put themselves out there. They lived in a bold and audacious faith. Are you willing to live in that faith? Are you willing to believe in an audacious way that, just like Joshua in the Old Testament, that if you ask God for the impossible, he will make it possible? Well, it really made me have to look and decide, am I that bold? Chris brought a passion one day. He picked up this book called Sun Stand Still by Stephen Furtick. And he picked up this book, and it ignited a passion in him that was unstoppable. He talked about it all the time, so much so that a friend was like, dude, give it a rest. But he didn't, because he believed there was something to being that bold and audacious. So he kept on and he kept on till one season we decided to have a Sun Stand Still series here. And if you weren't here when we did it, please go and check it out. It is amazing. In that series, we learned what it is to be audacious, what it is to be bold. And it's a weird word, but the word audacity is definitely not one that I at first thought of to describe my faith. But then I started to realize that audacity can make you do things. Audacity makes ordinary people behave with boldness. I want to be like that. And audacity makes ordinary people behave with disregard for personal comfort. I want to be like that. Audacity, this is one of my favorites. Audacity makes ordinary people behave with a disregard for conventional thinking. So what does that mean for us here at this place? It means that it doesn't have to look like anything in particular. It doesn't have to look like something that somebody has already defined. All we have to do is believe with an audacious faith that God has something so much bigger than we can ever describe. And if we're willing to step out in that, if we're willing to believe who He is, He's ready to let us overflow with this abundance of blessings and faith. It is not easy. It is definitely something that you'll have to make the decision. You'll have to decide, is this what I want to do? It leads me to talk about Joshua, which is one of the main characters in the Sun Stand Still book. And Chris just talked about Joshua all the time to where I got to the point that I was like, dude, move on to somebody else. But he didn't. And so I hope that you'll go back into the Old Testament. I hope that you'll go and look and read the story of Joshua and who he was, because he was a man filled with audacious faith. Joshua believed that if we would ask God for the impossible, things could be possible. When is the last time that you chose to make an audacious prayer request to God? When is the last time that you were really bold with Him? I'll share a time recently. It was a Sunday morning, and I was getting ready to come up here. My kids were acting all crazy. I couldn't find anything to wear. Couldn't find my car keys, which is a normal thing for me. And I was just like, I can't do this. I cannot do this. I cannot chase after them. I cannot keep up with my own stuff and go and do the things that you're telling me to do all by myself. And so I sat down on the floor like my 2-year-old and I pouted. And I told God, you know what? If you want me to keep doing what it is that you're pulling me into, then I need you to show up. And I need you to show up today, right now, in a big way. And then I realized, oh my gosh, that was really crazy to say to God. And so I got up and I found my keys and I got the kids ready and we showed up here. And I did my thing and I got to spend the afternoon with the kids, and that was awesome. And sure enough, God showed up. He sent this wonderful couple to me, and they brought me this amazing card. And there was a line in this card that I want to share, and it said, I don't know why I'm giving this to you. I have no idea. But God said you would understand. Yep, got my attention. So I said, all right, God, I'm not going anywhere, and I am in this. And I'm ready to be bold and audacious in whatever way it is that you want me to be. So then I had to start thinking on the fact that God loves us. And anytime that I start to doubt what my faith is, I just go back to that one simple truth. And those 3 words have changed everything for me. Because when I have doubt and I think that I can't do this, all I have to recognize is that there is one who believes I can do everything that He is calling me to do. There is one who knows exactly what I am capable of. And I call on that, and I have a new sense of hope, a new sense of faith, and I can walk through that day. And so, what does God's love look like? What does it look like in our chaos? Some of my days are crazy. Some of my days I am the crying lady at Walmart, pushing my buggy with tears running down my face, trying to keep my kid from screaming and knocking everything off the shelf, just trying to get out of there with some groceries. And then I get to the car and I realize I didn't get what I went for, but I got a whole basket full of other stuff. Anybody relate? Some days it's crazy. But that's where it is. You see, in our mess is our message. And I know that sounds so simple and so many have said it before, but it finally clicked. Yes, I am a mess. But that's okay because my mess can be used for something. My mess is not just going to happen just because. It's for a reason. And it's to share my messes with you guys. So you can laugh at me if you want to. So I can bring a little humor to you. Or so that you can see that in your mess, you have a message too. Last week, Todd talked about us being called to be here in this place together, for us to work together. We all have a very specific purpose. We all have a reason that we have been brought to this place, a reason that we are together. It is to encourage each other. It is to share our mess. It is to share hope with each other, because how else are we going to do it? I often hear this lie that anything that I share with you, my testimony, needs to be a really good, lifetime happy ending, and that if it's not, then I need to hang on to that. And I need to wait until that Lifetime movie happy ending happens. And then I can share it with you so that I can say, see, I went through all of this, and then here you go, this is what happened. That's a lie. Because it is in that progress, it is in the process of what's happening up until that Lifetime movie ending that is what needs to be shared. I can't sit and hang on to this message and not tell you, because you might be going through the same thing. You might be struggling with something that I am too. And if I hang on to that, well, what good is that for you? What hope am I bringing to you? And so I've had to rethink how I'm dealing with all this stuff. I have to rethink these messes that I am are for you. They're for each other here in this place to start sharing. You know, Jeremiah 29:11, normal verse, we all hear it. Before I ever came to church, it was actually one that I kind of knew. I was real excited because I was like, oh, I kind of know a Bible verse. And it was because I'd seen it as decoration in all my friends' houses on pretty signs and stuff. But it says that he has a plan, and that plan is for hope. It is to prosper us, to give us a future. God doesn't tell us that. He doesn't give us that hope, that promise, and then not walk with us the whole entire way. In Matthew, he says, do not worry, do not be afraid. There will be enough stuff tomorrow, so don't worry about tomorrow. Just focus on today and everything that you have in this moment. And so I'm really trying to work on that. I'm really trying to learn. It's hard, though. It's hard when you're thinking, I'm 3 car payments behind. If I don't pay this, they're fixing to come and take my car. How will I get to work to make that check that doesn't cover the bills that I already have? But without it, I really won't cover anything. And how am I going to give food to my children when I don't have enough to cover the car payment, the electric, and then get to that job that doesn't make enough money? There's chaos that we're all going through. There's stresses that we're all going through. And yeah, they look different for each of us, but at the same time, they look the same. At the same time, while they look different, we all need the same thing. We need hope. We need love and encouragement from each other. How are we going to do that if we don't share our stories? Sorry. I think it's important to be ready to share. I think it's important to be ready to share the stuff that is hard, the stuff that is hard for us to get to, because in that moment, that's when somebody else can lift me up. Somebody else can give me a word of kindness, of love, and encouragement, and I know that I can get through that moment because I'm surrounded. Does anybody else feel that way? Am I the only one? Am I the only one who so desperately needs hope, just as something to hang on to know that God is still in this? He is still ready to move when I am ready to be bold and audacious, when I'm ready to be bold and to ask him to move in my life. And when I ask him to move, when I say, God, I am so ready for you to take care of this electric bill. I am so ready for you to take care of these car payments. I need you to send somebody today. And when all of a sudden you get a statement that says your electric bill was paid, and you think, well, that can't happen. Yes, it can, because the impossible is possible when you ask God to move in your situation. When all of a sudden you think, I need a place to live, and you can't find a place to live that you can even afford, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, your terrible credit gets you into a house way less than you could have ever imagined, and you think, how is this possible? This is not possible. Yes, it is possible. It is possible when you ask God to move in that impossible situation, and he is waiting. He is ready to move on your behalf because he created you. He created you for a reason, and he loves you. He does not want you sitting there wondering how you're going to do it. He wants you to turn to him and ask him, please give me the hope that I need. And when he does move in that situation, when he shows up in that way that you say, I can't even explain this to anyone, that's when you share. You tell everybody you know, this is how I was, and this is what happened. I couldn't pay this, and he showed up, and this happened. You get on Facebook. We have no problem getting on Facebook and sharing all of our other business. But how about we get on Facebook and we share what's really important? How about we get on Facebook and share how God is moving in our lives? How about when we see somebody at Walmart and they look so down, and they might be the crying lady at Walmart? How about we get in that moment and share that God loves them? Is it because we're afraid? Are we afraid of what everybody might think? Will they think if I start saying all these things in an audacious and bold way that they might think I'm the crazy lady at Walmart? But that's okay, because he didn't call me to be comfortable. It's the audacity to live in an uncomfortable way and know that there is an outcome bigger than I can ever imagine. God loves us. He has brought us to this place to surround us with each other. We're here for each other. I told y'all, I'm not a professional. I don't know what I'm doing. And half the time, whenever I'm supposed to get up here, it takes everything I have to get up here in front of you. I am no different from you. I am an ordinary girl, surrounded by ordinary friends in ordinary circumstances. The thing is, after this year that I've faced, I'm ready to be bold. I'm ready to say I give it all up. I give it all to you, and I'm ready to do whatever it is that you're calling me to do. It's scary and it's hard, and I understand, but see, whenever we're so afraid and we don't know what it looks like, and we really want to see that Lifetime movie ending before we do it, he's waiting for us to step out. He'll let us see glimpses of what's to come next when we step out. And if we'll share during that fear and uncertainty, if we'll share a story with someone, well, that just might give them what they need for them to step out in their audacious faith. I didn't plan on ever standing up here. I was really okay with supporting Chris and being proud of him for what he was being called to do and the audacity that he was living in. I was actually jealous of that passion that he had. I was jealous that he was just constantly pursuing a God that changed everything for him. So while I didn't plan on being here, while I didn't plan on having to ever really share, I guess that's where God is saying, see, it's time that you share. And I'm not the only one he's telling that to. I know there's somebody in this room who has experienced a life-changing event, something that seemed impossible, and all of a sudden it was made possible. And it's burning inside of you, and it's time to share it. It's time to tell somebody about it. Why did it happen? How did it feel? What's happening now? And then after you do it the first time, well, it's still kind of scary the second time and the third time and the fourth time, but it starts to get a little bit easier. And then before you know it, you are ready to tell anybody and everybody about your God because he has changed everything. So we surround ourselves with people. We share our burdens. We share our pain. We share the trials that we're going through. We share that hurt that we don't know how to even put it into words. And all we sometimes can do is let the tears fall and say, my life is a mess. And when we're willing to humble ourselves and start sharing that mess, God starts to turn that into a message. And it's not just for you, it's for who you're sharing it with, because they might have a part in what's fixing to change in your life. And then after we share those burdens, the pains, well, then comes the joy. We get to rejoice with each other. We get to share that love. We get to share those things that are impossible. And we get to praise the one who made it all possible. It is an audacious faith. It is being bold in knowing who you are and who created you. And if you're sitting here and you're thinking, who is this person that you're talking about? Then all you have to do is ask. There's somebody sitting around you right now that would love to share a story of who that person is, who that creator is, who that God that I'm talking about is that loves you. We just have to be bold enough to ask, who is he? And who am I? And what does he want to do with me? Why am I important enough that he would want to share a story with somebody else to me to have life change? And he does. So I'm going to share a story with you. And it might take me a minute to get through this story, but it is my story of hope for this year. See, it wasn't until this story that I actually started to experience this hope and this need to share something with you. It wasn't until this story that I even recognized there was a need for hope. But this past year has been a very, very hard year. And for those of you who are new here or unsure, in February, I lost my husband. He passed away very suddenly at 29 years old. And so over this year, I've had to learn how to stand on my feet in a way that I never knew was possible. Yet with God, he has made it possible. And so this year has had lots of ups and downs. And with many, many, many of you, I have got to experience a love that has carried me through this year. And so I boldly tell you that this year, at the very beginning of this year, I saw the sun stand still. I was bold in asking God for a prayer request that many said was impossible. Chris had a genetic mutation that caused his sudden death. And this mutation is something that carries a 50-50 chance to be passed on to my children. That means there is a 1 in 2 chance that my kids will suffer the exact same thing as their father. It's a really heavy burden to carry on top of everything else that I was carrying. And see, I didn't share it with everybody. I didn't share that burden. Looking back, I wish I would have, but that's okay, I didn't. And God still was in it. I faced many obstacles, but I didn't give up. And I pursued a genetic counseling facility in Houston, and I had my children tested. And they didn't want to test my children because they are so young. They wanted some age of accountability. before they would give us this fate of this 1 in 2 chance of my children having the mutation. So, at the beginning, or after everything happened last year, I was bold with God, and I said, I need you to get in this situation, and I need you to fix this. And so, we go through this counseling process, which was pretty brutal. Had to go to Houston, which all on its own is really awful. And I meet with these counselors who are the ones who found this gene. And they're telling me over and over what this probability is that one, at least, if not both, of my 2 children have this mutation that their father carried. And so through all of this counseling and everything, they kept asking me how I was going to tell my children, how I was going to alter our lifestyle, and what I was going to do to, give them the best possibilities that I could. And every time my answer was, I don't know, we'll have to worry about that when it happens. And so they would bring in another genetic counselor. And this counselor again would try and tell me, do you realize what the probability is of this? And so then finally I say, look, I believe in something bigger than this. And so I'm not going to worry about that because today has enough worries of its own. And so with the prayer team here, I started to pray that God would be so bold to make the impossible possible in this situation. And so when I got the call in January that out of a 1 in 2 chance, neither one of my 2 children carry that gene, it was bold and it was audacious, but he was ready to make something happen so that you could see he's ready to move in your situation. What feels like is impossible is really possible. He loves you just the way he loved Joshua, just the way that he loved Chris. He loves you. He wants to move in your situation the way that he moved in mine. You see, he showed up and he said, Brandice, this is not over yet. I have called you into something and I am ready. If you will be bold and audacious, I am ready to give you hope for a future for not only yourself but your children. Do you want to be bold and audacious? Do you want to live that kind of lifestyle where you're bold enough to ask him for the impossible and to tell the people of this world, I have disregard for the way of your conventional thinking because I believe in something bigger than can ever be explained? The geneticist, when she called to give me the results, she told me, I've read over this many, many times, and I really don't understand how the probability with the numbers we were looking at has happened. And I said, oh, I know. So just when there is no hope and you think you're barely hanging on, he'll send something if you're willing to share it with somebody. He's going to send a story of hope for you to hang on to know that if he loves somebody else that much, he loves you that much too. And he is waiting to share that with you. He wants to give you in an abundant way. And all you have to do is step out. If you're sitting here today and you say, I don't know what that faith looks like, it's okay. Turn to somebody beside you and just ask them, because there are people that are in this place that want to share it with you. There are people all in this room who have encountered obstacles. And through those obstacles, they got to meet that unchanging God that transformed who I am. And he wants to do the exact same thing for you. So today, the word I leave you with is share. Share your faith. You can't describe it. So just share your stories. And with that, when you share, you're giving hope. And you're encouraging somebody. You're encouraging that those things that felt impossible are possible. And so you can hang on to those 3 words that God loves us. And he's ready to make himself known to everyone. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so thankful that I got to be a friend and just share my stories with you. And I pray that today when you leave here, you're going to start sharing your stories.